I went from like maybe 20 reviews in the like 4 years of being in business to like 80 or 90 within a summer. The review getting aspect of Apruv, and that has been phenomenal.
Okay, everybody, welcome back. Today, we're going to talk about what does it take to launch a pest control company from scratch in today's market. And we are going to be speaking with Matt, who is the founder of Fusion Pest. Matt, thanks so much for jumping on and talking shop.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, beautiful. So the way we like to start these conversations is we'd love to just hear your story. Talk to us about how did you get mixed up in the crazy world of pest?
I actually started in high school, just with the summer job working. At the time, that was probably the highest paying job a teenager could get. But I started working for the county mosquito abatement district, and I was doing mosquito control on the county level, making $10 an hour the first summer, and then the second summer came back and made $11 an hour. So I was sitting pretty good back in the day. This
climbing the ladder, baby.
Exactly. This has been 2007 or 2008.
Also, I got to say, being in Florida, you're doing God's work, man. Getting rid of mosquitoes.
It's a pretty beneficial thing to do. Where I'm from, I did a 2-year break and served an LDS mission, and then after that, I got home in 2011, and so started up at college and didn't even think about pest control, to be honest with you, until sometime during my 2012 year, some recruiters stopped by at my buddy's table and invited us for a pizza party, and so we went to it, and they obviously did their spiel. Long story short, I ended up not going out that summer, which I'm ultimately grateful for. But the next summer, I made the commitment and went out and sold door to door. I did well enough for a first year rep. I think I closed out 125 accounts, and before the summer ended, and was quite satisfied with my results at the time, and got married as soon as the summer was over. I was engaged, so that was some motivation.
Well, I want to go back just a little bit. 125 counts your first summer. That's pretty good, right? I mean, isn't that kind of towards the top of the ranks?
It's decent for first year.
Dang, man. So what was? I'm sure people would want to know, because people are probably like thinking about going and knocking doors. How did you pull that off your first year?
Well, I don't know. I think I wanted it way badly.
Just put on the Matt charm, baby.
I engaged. It was the fiance.
Exactly. No, I had that big motivation behind me. But I went down with a couple buddies of mine. They didn't sell well at all. One of them, I think, got 20 to 30 accounts before they moved him as a technician, and the other one, they wanted to send him home, but like literally the Friday before he got made a technician for Monday, he got one account. And so that would have been the end of May. So he had a good solid month and only sold one account. But they didn't want to send him home because they didn't want to affect me. And the very first day I went out and sold, I was just knocking doors, didn't know any different, and finally came across and I sold the account my first day. And that's pretty good feat for a first year. I kind of think the fact that I sold an account the first day was kind of like, okay, he's okay. We'll focus on these other guys who are just burning through area. Like they were moving, I think every 2 days they were moving neighborhoods, and I literally stayed in that same neighborhood all week. and on Saturday I closed 5 deals, and just people I talked to at the beginning of the week and just being persistent, going back, and I think I got 7 accounts my first week, and so that's not terrible. But I didn't get a one-on-one training with the manager until probably week 2 or 3 in, and that was me like, hey, I could use some help, guys, And so anyway, I would kind of attribute honestly a little bit of my success to just being thrown to the wolves and figuring it out, straight up hard work and blessings, I suppose. I don't know if it was a help or hindrance overall, but a big motivation to continue it was the way that company paid was a pay-go system. So when the customer paid for that month's worth of services, I would get my commission check the following 10th of the following month, right? As we're getting closer to February, March, and April, those commission checks start getting lower and lower because you're not getting paid for the people you sold in April anymore. You're just getting paid for the people who sold later on in the summer. And I think I got used to having that check come in. And so I was like, this is not a bad way to make some money. So I convinced my wife the second summer that I could go out, and she stayed in Idaho. Ultimately, I didn't sell as many accounts my second summer, but I did get paid more because of the commission percentage differences from being a first year rep to a returning sales rep. 2015 was Texas. They sold the Texas office, and so then in 2016 and 17 summers, I went to Utah. But 2017, I'll be frank with you. At that time, I was like, man, I kind of want to start my own business. I kind of want to, the carrot, as they say, that was, being dangled for motivating to stay with the particular company was getting less incentivizing to me personally. I'd probably make more money doing my own thing. And that's what I ultimately decided. And so my oldest daughter was born in 2017 during the summer. And
there's some more motivation for you.
Yeah, after a different challenge.
Now you've got a new baby.
I partnered with a close friend of mine, and that was 2019. And he started his company down in Utah in 2018. And so we partnered up here, 50-50 partnership. It was a great year. I learned a lot. Sadly, the partnership didn't work out in the long run. In 2021, 2022, we split up, and as part of the split, I got to keep all the accounts up here that I had sold. And that's when I started my own business, Fusion Pest Control. And so Fusion's the first company on my own, as opposed to starting with someone else. It's been life-changing, and we're in 2025 now, so basically 3 years of on my own, and yeah, things are going pretty good. So
that's great.
So
that's awesome.
What's your vision for Fusion, Matt, as you kind of look, you're 3 years into it. You've had a lot of experience working for other companies and have a good view of the landscape. Where do you want to take it?
That's an excellent question, and to be frank, it's changed over the last couple of years. It used to be I just wanted to be grow like Edge Pest Control had grown theirs. I don't know if I want to do it that way, because I feel like the door-to-door model struggles for especially pest control. There's a lot of competition out there that throws a lot of money at door-to-door reps, and that might be changing with incentives. For example, solar. I got several friends who've left pest control altogether to do solar. Recruiting for pest control is a lot more difficult than it was when I started. And I think that's just lack of other options. And use either pest control or security, or you sell in dish or direct TV, right? Those are the three options for door to door. Sure, there's
gotta host more pizza parties, man. That's the solution.
That's right. That's right.
I've been to those meetings. I've eaten that pizza.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so I guess my plan, overall vision for Fusion has been, I honestly feel like there's going to be huge transfer of wealth from maybe not large local companies, but local companies in general that are 30, 40 years in business, and the second generation's not interested in it. And so you got these 60, 70-year-old guys who've been running this business since 1980, 1990, and they're looking to sell. So I'm kind of thinking, approaching it from a merger acquisition aspect of growing. And I've also changed. I used to be like dead set, like, oh, everything's got to be branded Fusion. But at the end of the day, I'm like, I guess I really don't care if I buy a company in let's say South Carolina that's been there for 30 years. I don't care if my logo is on that company, as long as it's doing what it's supposed to do, which is continuing to grow and provide revenue, right? Fusion's not a bad name after all. It's like, hey, I'm fusing different companies together, but I guess I've changed my mindset in terms of I got to start from the ground up every office or every market I want to be in. It's like, why do I need to do that, right?
So you touched on something interesting that leads into a nice question. So you're obviously, managing a lot of different aspects, right? The sales, the service, the advertising, the marketing. So how do you juggle wearing all of those different hats? Like what's working well for you operationally?
I'm still trying to figure out what works well. No, this is, I would say, one of my biggest struggles is I'm not as organized as I should be. And it's like, and then when I'm juggling all the different things, making sure payroll's paid on time and services are being done, but I'm also answering all the office calls. Like I'm at that weird point where I do have technicians working for me. They're helping me out with the services, and they're doing great in that regard. I do have someone scheduling for me as a part-time gig for her. It works out perfectly with her schedule. But I kind of need a full-time secretary that is organized to handle a lot of this back end stuff, but I can't quite afford to justify paying someone to be a full-time secretary, right? And so, and part of it was due to the fact of how I started, I guess, the pest control. I left my other job. I left my job at Ryder Grain in the winter in December of 2019. And I'd already sold some accounts and was doing pest control on the side. But Idaho Falls area in the winter is not the most ideal time to start a door-to-door pest control company, if you can imagine.
Yeah. I bet you got to shovel the snow to find the bugs.
Exactly. And so, we do services year round, so that's not the issue, but you're not getting phone calls, or you're not, and so I had to get kind of creative. And then I noticed that there's a lot of commercial, like food processing plants and warehouses and stuff like that. They handle a lot of the produce that's grown locally and that kind of stuff. I noticed they all had base stations out front. And so I talked to a cousin of my dad's who was part owners, and he's a potato farmer, and he was part owners in a potato warehouse that they just washed it and boxed it. They send it across the country. It might wind up in Texas or even Florida for that matter. And talked to him. I was like, hey, what kind of pest control they do? And so he told me all the stuff they did and the different auditing things they have to go through. And so that's why I decided to focus on. And I found a few potato warehouses who were willing to take a chance on a new guy who, honestly didn't know what he's doing. And that has changed the dynamic of my pest control, I guess. And so now it's like, I'm fairly commercial centric. I'm not like I would say probably 30 to 40% of my revenue comes from my commercial customers. And for most door-to-door pest control companies, when they say commercial, they're talking doctor offices or dentist offices or maybe occasional restaurant here or there. And I do have all those, but like those are not audited accounts. They typically treat on a quarterly basis, whereas these warehouses and food processing plants are a weekly service. They have to have very specific documentation for pest log books. And I would say most local companies just don't even worry about that, which is both good and bad, right? So there's only like 4 or 5 regional / national companies that do those services almost exclusively. And that's basically my competition when I go in there. And
interesting.
But anyway, so that branching out into that aspect has also changed my focus quite a bit. And so when I'm actually looking for companies across the country to purchase, it's not like necessarily a hard and fast criteria, but I'm definitely curious about how many commercial accounts they have that do those type of services. And so, but yeah, it's been good being able to branch out that way. So, kind of had no choice but to figure something out. And I would say if you're backed up against the wall with no other way out, that's probably the best way to be successful. If you got backup plans like crazy, you're gonna fall back on your backup plans like crazy. You're not gonna push through the this suck phase to the success you want to see. You're gonna give up and fall back on your backup plan, if that makes sense. So.
Mm-hmm. So hindsight is 2020, Matt. If you were going to start a pest control company again, I know your new strategy is inorganic growth through acquisition, but if you were giving advice to someone who's starting a pest control company or just the very beginning phase, with what you've learned, what would you say are the 1 to 2 top pieces of advice you'd give? I would say it's very challenging doing it on your own. Doing it on your own, you're going to be able to create yourself a really good job and even a high paying job. And if you don't have the vision of, hey, I want to have multiple offices and deal with that headache, that's totally fine. If you want to be a really good local company, several local companies I know in this area, the owners, they're doing half the services still, but they're pulling in, well into the 6 figures on a personal income basis. And so it's not a bad gig to do on your own. If you're going to go into a partnership, don't do it wrong. Like I did. Ultimately, I think I failed the partnership, in a lot of different ways. And so make sure if you're doing partnership, make sure everything's in writing. That was one of the biggest failures I had. Too many verbal commitments and handshakes, if that makes sense, and too much trust from a friendship perspective, as opposed to and a lack of accountability on my part. I'd make sure you get
You get roles lined out to begin with, so there's no ambiguity in terms of who's responsible for what. Now, roles can change, don't get me wrong. It's not like a hard and fast, this has to stay this way forever. But this way you have something to fall back on and be like, hey, you said this and we've now grown it to this. I think I want to do, that there's something that you can move around as needed. Don't put the cart before the horse in terms of how you plan things, right? So my first truck as Fusion Pest Control, I probably bought too much of a truck for what I really needed, right? But I just wanted out of that other situation I was in, and this truck looks cool, and I love the truck. Don't get me wrong, but it's not an ideal pest control truck. And
you don't need a whole lot of reason to buy a nice truck, dude.
That's right. You convince yourself of a lot of things.
Any excuse to get one. Hey, it's a good looking truck. I've seen it. It's a Tundra, right?
Yeah, it is a Tundra. And
nice.
Gas mileage is terrible. Just so you know, if you're looking at Toyotas, Tundras, they're terrible at gas mileage. But yeah, I'd say and be more conscientious about how spending is done in general, as opposed to ultimately, I think that's what led to part of the failings of my previous partnership was the business funds were being treated too much as a personal piggy bank, if that makes sense. I often sometimes wonder if I had done it right, where would we have been? But at the end of the day, I've been able to triple the revenue with outside of the partnership.
That's true.
Now you got you own all the company, 100% equity.
So I can make all the decisions, and that also means all the failures are 100% my responsibility, right? And so I've gotten rid of any potential blaming the other guy for lack of success, if that makes sense. And so I think taking extreme ownership of my situation, both prior to Fusion and currently, has honestly helped me have a lot clearer vision and future of what I want to see out of my company. Previously, if a technician messed up on a job, it was, oh, I'm sorry, they messed up, we'll come out and fix it, instead of like, now it's like, if my technician messes up on a job, it's like, hey, that's on me. I'm sorry. I apologize about that. We'll get that fixed, but that's just lack of training on my part, and we won't let that happen again. And so just that shift in responsibility has been maybe not monetarily life-changing, but personally a life-changing experience, if that makes sense.
Yeah, man. I mean, when you own it, you know you're going to take care of it, which seems like you've really, grabbed a hold of the reins on that, and that definitely makes sense and lines up. So one of the other things I want to talk about, as we're talking about your operations and things, what kind of softwares, what kind of tools, what kind of programs are you using that you feel like are helping you streamline your operations?
Obviously, Apruv. That's why I'm here. Jared hit me up on and just shared with me some of the options or some of the features they could do to help out. And the thing I focused on was primarily the review getting aspect of Apruv, and that has been phenomenal. I went from like maybe 20 reviews in the 4 years of being in business in general, to like 80 or 90 within a summer, just from the way Apruv worked, and that really boosted my local ratings. Between that and the other SEO stuff I've been working on, pretty much everywhere outside of Idaho Falls, I'm like the number one hit. In Idaho Falls, I'm still in the top 5 or 6. But so that's what we're working on. But yeah, Apruv has been a game changer in terms of review getting. It used to be I just ask and hope the customer would actually do it, send them the link, but just the automated, the AI, as well as so I use Apruv for the review getting aspect, as well as the when I'm in a sales situation, the sales rep do the closing calls, and that's been phenomenal in terms of retention, right? No longer can a customer, which doesn't happen a lot with me, I imagine with companies that are selling, 30,000-40,000 in a month of new accounts, having this type of record reduces the attrition like crazy, just for the sheer fact of, hey, this is what you agreed to. You didn't make this up. here's the evidence, that kind of stuff. Whether they stick long term or not, that's another story. But I suspect it reduces the attrition for the door-to-door aspect drastically. But anyway, so yeah, those are basically the three things I use. And Apruv has got a lot more things. That's what I want to focus on right now. And
that's great. I mean, that's some serious,
later.
Serious review generation. Honestly, nice work on that, dude. I mean, we know you do good work, so it's just a matter of getting them to leave a good review.
Thanks, Matt. It was awesome to hear your story a little more, and you were very early on with when Apruv launched, so you're one of the OGs, and your insight and feedback has been really valuable. And I'm glad to jump on and hear your story a little bit more. It's cool to hear the hustle and the journey you've been on. It's awesome. It takes a lot of drive to do what you do. So
awesome. Well, thanks, Matt. Congrats on your success, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you both.